On a rainy September day, Harvard Business School played host to some of the most successful, wealthy, and powerful people in the world. Meet the Harvard MBAs of yesteryear, returning for their fall reunion. There's Frank Lorenzo, class of '63 and former CEO of Continental Airlines. And sharing her most vivid memory of HBS, circa 1978, here's Ann Moore, CEO of Time Incorporated.
About 10% of my class, I think, is female. There were 8 of us, I think, in our section. About 80 people. It was clearly designed for men because there weren't any formal ladies' rooms in Aldrich Hall, so it gave me great delight today to use a real ladies' room, I have to tell you.
I think they are 2 different products.
Today, a third of the students are women, another third from foreign countries. Some of the many transformations this fabled institution has experienced against a backdrop of constant change, including most recently, a global economic collapse.
They're calling this the biggest shakeup in financial markets since the Great Depression. As we
mentioned, the credit markets are not functioning
as the worst financial crisis in modern times.
With banks failing, markets tumbling, the reunion got underway just as the financial crisis of 2008 was unfolding.
Welcome to all of you on this stormy day in Boston. The weather isn't very good either.
As Dean Light told the former students, it was the start of a new chapter in the school's history.
It is, I believe, a quite dangerous time. It's quite clear the old financial system is gone. And I think, by the way, that this school will be very different going forward.
Just how different the school will be, it's too soon to tell. But in fact, it was a time just like this one, a century ago, when Harvard first formed a business school. Markets were crashing, banks went under.
This school was founded to produce the kind of managers and the kind of leaders that could be effective in those times and beyond.
It was called a delicate experiment, right? And no one believed that was going to stick.
Yeah, and remember, the year's 1908, so even the idea of a corporation is relatively new. We were right at the beginning of thinking about what kinds of people would you need to lead these organizations.
And so, one of the world's most famous graduate schools was born. The idea? Train business leaders with the same demanding standards found in Harvard's medical and law schools.
It's not easy for anybody, we hope. For any student who comes here, we want 36 hours of their time every day.
It's been that tough since the very beginning.
That's where the really old guys come.
The high anxiety felt by almost every student remains fresh to this day. Meg Whitman, class of '79.
When I was here, we had something called written and oral communications, which is they would give you a case on Friday morning, and by Friday night at midnight, you had to have your written analysis, and you had to put it in a manila envelope and then drop it in what looked like a post box by midnight. And at midnight, the door went down to that post office. And if you didn't get your paper in, you didn't get a grade. You got an F. There would be lines of students on either side of the box. You'd pull up in your car, and you'd run the gauntlet to drop your paper in. And, you know, that was a little stressful.
Yeah, I would think so. Moving along.
Exactly.
The question is, if our section...
But if you really want an idea of how tough Harvard Business School can be, there are examples of leaders in business who didn't come here, who didn't get in. Buffett is one name I've heard.
We obviously made a big mistake with Warren. We'd love to get that one back. And we have offered him a place in our current class, but he says it's probably too late.
The fact that Warren Buffett didn't have to go to HBS to become Warren Buffett raises the big question. Does anyone need a Harvard MBA in the first place? Philip Delves Broughton is a journalist who took 2 years out of his career to get an MBA at Harvard.
What is the value of these places if Bill Gates didn't go there, if the founders of Google didn't go there, if so many great business people never get an MBA, what is the point of it? And I think business schools struggle with this all the time. They're always trying to justify themselves in a way that law schools, medical schools just don't have to.
So it sounds like you're saying Harvard sells not really an education, but brand association.
That's a big part of it. And while I was there, people would often ask the question, would you rather have the education or the brand? And a lot of people say, how can you teach leadership in a classroom? You know, you're either born to be Napoleon or Alexander the Great or Jack Welch, or you're not. You're not going to learn that in an academic setting. But the truth of it is that, okay, you may never be Napoleon or Jack Welch or Alexander the Great, But there is a science to managing large groups of people. There is some science to how do you hire and fire people. And those kinds of things you can learn.
Steve Schwarzman, class of '72, is arguably one of the most powerful men in finance, and as a billionaire many times over, one of the wealthiest. As founder of private equity giant the Blackstone Group, he argues an MBA is a necessity for anyone who wants to become a true player.
When younger people hit somewhere between their 5th and 7th year, and they haven't gotten their MBA, somehow they stall out, and you start dealing with more senior people, and you need a more comprehensive view of the world. That people who haven't gone to business school really miss that dimension, and they have trouble, not in every case, but in many cases, just getting through that glass ceiling.
And getting your master's, and where did you go to school?
Harvard Business School.
Okay, in Harvard Business School.
There's something else being taught these days at Harvard Business School that can't be found on a spreadsheet. A sense of right and wrong, brought about by a wave of white-collar crime that had HBS alum Jeff Skilling as its most high-profile villain.
Jeffrey Skilling will go to prison for 24 years, 4 months.
Skilling, class of '79, may not be attending a Harvard reunion anytime soon. As president of Enron, he was found guilty on 18 counts of fraud and conspiracy and 1 count of insider trading.
Has the school taken too hard of a knock because Jeff Skilling went here?
Well, Jeff Skilling did go here, so I mean that's a fair point. I think, you know, the way I would say is we have 68,000 alumni. We are proud of almost all of them. We're proud of having a very low market share of people who got off the track and did inappropriate things. But obviously he made some serious mistakes.
People want to associate changes you made in the curriculum, a move toward a look at ethics and so forth, to that example at Enron. Was it one after the other?
I think that era did, in fact, galvanize our view that we really need to make this effort even more important than it was, and that's what led to the Leadership and Corporate Accountability course.
But the financial disaster of 2008, triggered in part by a climate of greed and dubious ethics, has raised questions about just what kind of graduates business schools like Harvard are turning out. Jamie Dimon, HBS class of '82, is CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the banking giants still standing.
Does HBS and business schools, do they bear some responsibility for instilling a culture that was later practiced on the street?
No. I mean, again, I put that in the absurd category because they don't teach people to be bums or crooks or, you know, to be greedy or stuff like that. They teach people a lot of things. That's the individual. And there's a lot of lessons that come out of this. And I'm sure Harvard Business will run cases about it for years.
Despite the bad news on Wall Street and Main Street, the reunion was, by all accounts, a success. But as the alumni looked back fondly on their yesterdays here, they worried about the next generation.
If you were here now, wouldn't you be nervous?
If I was a student, I would be concerned. What would I be doing after graduation? Where would I go to work? What is the state of the economy? Will entrepreneurship still be alive and well? Will risk-taking still be alive and well? Will the things that make America great still be alive and well? I think they will be, but it is an unsettled time.
Students are just learning their world can turn on a dime, something this Harvard grad already knew.
They said you have cancer.
For Kathy Giusti, a Harvard MBA became a lifeline.
Harvard in a large way helped save my life.
A case study in courage when we come back. But first,
I was going to drop out in December. You know, the weather gets pretty miserable in Boston around that time. There was a lot more to learn. In the second year, I would be happy I stayed.
In our classroom, we set up a gong. The gong keeper sat up in the top center, and he would gong BSers. And he would also, if we were really floundering, he would gong us just for public service.
I met one of the people from the admissions office at the Harvard Club, and we had a very nice conversation for about an hour. What I didn't realize, of course, is one of my legs had gone to sleep. And so when I stood up after the interview, I fell down.
I thought I had danced.
it's hard to make a to finance. Think of a
available now on Check.
this, a career on Wall Street, doing deals, executing trades, managing capital at the highest levels of the financial system. In fact, 45% of the graduating class of 2007 went into finance. Another 22% entered consulting. But others take roads less traveled, sometimes by faith. At a Saturday night black tie gala in Greenwich, Connecticut, the celebrities are out in full force. Supermodel Cindy Crawford has flown in from her home in California. Sportscaster Tiki Barber has also made it his business to be here. So has news anchor Deborah Norville. They've all come to honor the real star of the evening, someone who isn't as famous. But to people here and others, HBS alum Kathy Giusti, class of '85, is more than a star. She's a hero.
What this woman could do is nothing short of spectacular. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO and founder of the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, Kathy Giusti.
In 1996, Giusti was a 37-year-old pharmaceutical executive and a new mother when she began to feel exhausted and started losing weight. Not long after, she was given a diagnosis that would change her life and possibly end it: multiple myeloma, an uncommon and incurable form of blood cancer, so rare that research was limited, drugs non-existent. Kathy Giusti realized she was dying.
It wasn't until I actually started reading all the statistics that I said, oh, this is a really, really bad one. And I thought I could deal with the word cancer. It was when I read the statistics that I really kind of fell to the floor and crumbled.
Giusti refused to become one of those statistics. With her twin sister Karen, she founded the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation.
When I was diagnosed and they told me that I would only live 3 years at best, at the time I started the foundation because I thought if I lived until my little girl who was 1, if I lived until she turned 5, maybe she would remember me. That was really the start of the foundation. I thought, let me fund enough research to at least have her remember me.
The odds were not in her favor, but something else was: her degree from Harvard Business School.
What I learned at Harvard was problem solving and creating really good action plans to fix it and bringing in the right teams to get it done. Anybody that reads the literature can see that it takes about 10 years to get a drug to market, typically, and it costs about $1 billion. What we ended up doing was breaking down the cancer drug development system, step by step.
It wasn't just HBS courses that helped Giusti. Her former classmates, including her husband Paul, all rallied around her. An elite group with money, connections, and a knack for solving problems.
People say the network opens doors after they graduate, but in your case it was so much more important and personal.
I actually had a team of Harvard graduates that helped me write the first business plan for my foundation.
The plan was simple: get everyone who was doing multiple myeloma research to work together. For years, researchers had worked independently, and the results were not always shared. Giusti's foundation organized a 15-member consortium of research centers and also set up a centralized tissue bank. The result? 4 new drug treatments in 4 years, extending not only Kathy Giusti's life, she's now in remission, but also the lives of others. The goal now: make the treatments better and better until someday there's a cure.
The drugs we've launched, they're being used in 19 other cancers now.
How often now do the lessons that you learned in class get applied in your everyday work?
All the time. Here I am, running a nonprofit in some of the toughest economic times this country's facing. That's not an easy situation to be in, but I will tell you, having been through all of those finance courses, really being able to understand the human resource issues, I think we run a very efficient company.
And the Black Tie Gala was proof.
The early tally, and they're still back there counting. We have raised over $1.2 million tonight for the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation.
The final total, $1.5 million. Another triumph for Kathy Giusti.
I love how she, kind of took his business brain and applied it to the nonprofit world to get real results. She came from Harvard Business School, and then now she's a patient and someone who wants quick results, obviously, because it's a matter of life and death for her.
How much credit do you give Harvard for all this?
You Harvard a lot of credit. I think, again, back to the case study. You look at things, you read the data, you figure out what the problem is, you create a solution, you articulate it, you implement it. That's what I did when I was fighting my disease.
It's not overstating it to say that Harvard, in a small way, helped save your life.
Harvard, in a large way, helped save my life.
While Kathy Giusti says her MBA made all the difference, today's students wonder if their degree will help them through a shattered economy.
I have friends who used to work at investment banks that no longer exist.
Lots of companies are in hiring freezes. It's stressful.
A future they never counted on when we return. But first,
I left her on fire, kind of saying, okay, I want to lead people, I want to be in business. Plus I was $50,000 in debt, right? So I was highly motivated. Way too many of my colleagues were too cocky going into the business world. We came at it as smart guys, almost again like, we were special. And that was the one thing that I really had to tone down.
If the Harvard Business degree was everything, I would not be the chairman of Chinese today.
People want to get ahead so quickly, but I wouldn't have missed those 2 years for anything. It's a whole part of my life. It was 2 of the best years of my life.
I thought I had danced with the devil when I bought the Dallas Cowboys.
In this economy we're in now, last man standing.
Columnist.
as the leaves turn color on the campus of Harvard Business School, Lysandra Rickards, Michael Fetter, and their classmates have successfully weathered their first midterms. But something changed here besides the seasons. It's the global economy, now in a flat-out, full-blown crisis. And as students start hunting for jobs, they wonder what's to become of them in this new world order.
I have friends who used to work in investment banks that no longer exist.
Career stuff definitely is weighing on my mind more and more because of the environment that we're in. Lots of companies are in hiring freezes. It's stressful.
Hey, how are you?
The dark clouds of a gloomy economy loom over a friendly group dinner with Lysandra's study team.
I think everything is tough right now, so people are just trying to do the best they can and do a lot of research really early on, and then hopefully get a good internship.
On Wall Street alone, where the largest concentration of HBS grads are traditionally found, more than 150,000 have lost their jobs so far, and tens of thousands more are expected to follow. That's causing second-year students like Lena Sen to rethink their career path.
My class, we have 8 more months to go before we graduate. The landscape is changing as we speak. Who knows what's going to happen a month from now or 3 months from now?
Like many other classmates, Lena meets with career counselors who help to navigate through anxious times.
I really want to take the time to reassess my timeline. As you know, I worked at Lehman last summer in the investment management division, which, it's still not clear how things are going to unfold.
What type of roles do you see, what people do you see that are currently in the type of role that you would want?
Jana Kierstead has been with HBS MBA Career Services for 9 years.
Most of these students have only been around for the good times. So this is the first time where they've seen the risk side, and we're working with them in a coaching capacity to say, okay, what's the 5 to 7 year, and what's another way you might be able to get there? Because there's still other paths, and there's still many other organizations hiring.
You can just fill one of those out and then a name tag.
Spence Miller, who's just 1 semester away from graduating, is hopeful that recruiting events like this one, held by Bain Consulting Company, mean there are still plenty of job opportunities to be found.
I would always equate it to a little bit of a dating game. You need to make a good first impression, and also you want to hear what they have to say about their business because they're selling their company as well. I'm not really worried because I'm more of an optimist.
An optimistic view perhaps learned from his professor. Joe Lasseter says from what he's observed of his students over a decade at HBS, a passing economic crisis won't stand in their way.
No matter how disruptive this moment is, I am absolutely confident 5 years from now, they're going to be in very good shapes. They're going to be leaders who make a difference in the world. And my job is to keep reminding them of that, because at the moment, the pressure can take your eye off that.
Kathy Giusti, class of 1985, knows all too well the anxiety of an uncertain future. She believes there's an added responsibility and a leg up for those entering the world with a Harvard business degree.
I think the Harvard name gives you a ticket to help create change. And I think we all want a legacy. You know, in some way, and I think in some ways I've been a little bit lucky because I was forced to think about what my legacy was going to be. You know, I was told I had 3 years to live. I wanted to do something really good with it. But I think that's what drives us. We want to leave this world thinking we made a difference.
And that's the Harvard mission, isn't it? To create leaders who make a difference in the world.
It is, and I think we all take that role very seriously.
Others say, once you get in to Harvard Business School, you're pretty much set. You're surrounded by others who are going to be pretty much set along with you.
People notice that school's name on your resume, but look, there are plenty of people that go in for an interview and still don't get the job because you didn't fit with the culture, you didn't interview well, your personality didn't quite shine with them. It's not, it's not a given.
Lysandra Rickards has no illusions that an HBS degree alone will land her a plum job.
I think I'd have to do a lot of networking. Originally I was thinking about going into finance, and now I feel that there are going to be a lot more limited options.
But so far, Lysandra says her experience at Harvard Business School has been worth all the stress that comes with it.
It has met my expectations in a lot of different ways. In terms of the kind of people that I'm meeting and the kind of fun that I'm having, I really think that this learning model suits my learning style. So the case method and talking in class and self-driven preparation, that's really how I learn best.
The young people you meet here, the things they try to do are delightful to watch. And in a world where there are just not enough leaders, people who take on that burden of what do we need to do, how do we get it done, this place is very remarkable in its ability to consistently produce people who take on that challenge for us. I have no doubt that in their 5th reunion, we're going to be smiling and laughing.
I thought I had danced with the devil when I bought them.